Welcome back, I'm Wavepunk, and this is day 133 of producing for a year. If you want to make music of a specific style, it's important for you to critically listen to that type of music. I decided that my next project on this channel is going to be drum and bass, so I need to know what goes into making a good drum and bass song. In previous episodes, we went over the fundamentals of the genre, including how to make a basic D&B break and kick, as well as some basic techniques for synthesizing, but following a YouTube tutorial about how to put the kick over one beat every other measure doesn't make like a full D&B song. So today we're listening to one of my favorite drum and bass albums, Ex Machina by Metrik, to see if I can answer the question, how do you write drum and bass? The first thing that jumps out to me about this album, just by looking at it, is the time 4 minutes and 30 seconds. There are 13 tracks on this album, and all but 3 of them fall within 15 seconds of 4.5 minutes, and one of those is an interlude here, Ascension 117. It's at Master Chief time, that's great, and that's not even drum and bass. In fact, 3 of the tracks on here are exactly 4 minutes and 30 seconds, which just seems like, I don't know, weirdly coincidental, and I had to go like, is this only a Metrik thing? Turns out no. Justin Hawks' 2022 album Existential, take a look at those times. Pendulum's 2010 album Immersion, take a look at these times. While there's definitely a bit more variance on those albums, the median time for the track still falls somewhere between 4 and 5 minutes. So cool, without even having to listen to anything, we have a pretty clear goal of what time to be shooting for when writing this track. So how does Metrik fill that 4 minutes and 30 seconds? Well, I did some light analysis. It's not that complicated, some formal analysis here of how these songs actually work and break down, and we'll walk through kind of the details I picked out on these three songs. The 3 songs I analyzed were the songs that came in at exactly 4.5 minutes: Parallel, Closer, and Gravity, all of the Ex Machina album. Drum and bass is in 4, probably 4/4 time for most of you, and the most common tempo is 174 BPM. This entire album is at 174 BPM, including these 3 tracks. On this album, Metrik seems to operate exclusively in 16-bar sections, meaning 64 beats or 16 groupings of 4 beats at 174 BPM. Every 16 bars, he changes something. Every 16 bars, he changes something, and after 12 instances of 16-bar sections, he has like a 5 or 6 second tail, and then that's the end of the track. That comes out magically to 4 minutes and 30 seconds. To demonstrate what I'm talking about, let's take a look at Parallel, the first of these tracks, probably my favorite track on the album as well. I'm just gonna kind of count as we get kind of through the each bar, and we're going to show you how every 16 bars something changes here. Let's take a listen here at the beginning. It starts off with some pads and hi-hats. 2, 3, 4, 3, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. We're halfway there. 5, 6, 7. This is 16 right here. Now something's going to change. 1. Melody. More drums. Follow along on the chart here. 7, 8. We're halfway there. 10, 11, 12. Now we're going to get to the verse. Voices. All right, you see how that works? You see how every 16 bars something's changing here? So he has this intro at the beginning of this track, then kind of what I'm calling a second intro, where he introduces a synth melody, an instrument melody that's not the voice, and then he has the verse, which is the first moment where you're kind of, it doesn't feel like we're building, like we're going to, it feels like we're at the music, but then we're still building in it, especially as that intro continues on, or as that verse continues on here. This would be 7, 8. This is the back half. The snare. We're starting to build. Build up to the full drop. The first moment you'd be like, ah yes, this is drum and bass. The next 16 is exactly the same as what we just heard, but including the voice from the verse earlier in the track, kind of cementing that idea they established in the intro. The drop then continues into a third 16-bar section here, but this one doesn't have the vocals, and instead is an instrumental section, has a bit of a harmony change, different chords in this section, and the melody comes from that second intro we heard at the beginning of the track. Okay, now we've had enough. That was a lot of energy here. We have kind of a breakdown section, a little bit of a break, a calm down section. There's still that hi-hat that we had at the very beginning, still going on in the background, and the same chords we just had from the last drop section before, but much more toned down. Then coming out of the break, we got to build back up because we're going back into the drop again. So again, that same sort of snare hits, a lot of the same sort of stuff we heard in the second half of the verse section at the beginning, and then that leads us into an exact facsimile repeat of the drop, verse, and the instrumental. After we get to that second drop, we have 16 bars of outro, which is mostly just stuff we've heard throughout the piece, but hasn't been the center of our attention. A lot of kind of like reduction of new information here. And then once those 16 bars are up, there's that 6-second tail out at the end, and Parallel is over. Okay, cool. So a pretty decent roadmap here of a drum and bass song. Do things change in Closer and in Gravity? No, but also yes, they do things a little bit differently. We still have the exact same sort of intro sound here. I will say in Closer, while the songs are still divided into 16-bar sections, a lot of those 16-bar sections have kind of an 8-bar subdivision in the middle of them. So if you listen at the very beginning here, Closer just starts out with drums. And after 8 bars, it's going to change here instead of waiting all the way to 16, because this would be a lot just for 16 bars, right? 8. The guitar comes in. They come out of this. 15. 16. Let's get melody. And then kind of we do the same thing here with Gravity. Again, there is a little bit of a variation here, but otherwise things are pretty similar here. So what does this tell us about how to write drum and bass in general? Well, if we zoom out here a little bit, you can see a bit of a pattern start to form. There's some kind of clear sections that, while there's a little bit of variation in how they execute within each of those sections, there is a general overarching formula that we can very easily follow. In this first section, I'm just calling it the intro. It's very, very simple. It's 3 distinct 16-bar sections, one of which contains the song idea. So the core idea in Parallel, it's this melody, you are electric, together we will excel, as well as the synth melody they introduce in the second intro, and those ideas then carry on into the drop. They're used a lot. So this section has to introduce them. Usually it's in section 2 or 3. In Gravity, it's just in section 2. And section 3 is just a build, but that is kind of the other big important part. Section 3 always builds in your intro. So 16 bars of intro, 16 bars of introduce some idea you're going to do throughout the rest of the piece, and then 16 bars to build up to that first drop. And that first drop, it's 3 distinct 16-bar sections, the same as the intro. I was surprised that it wasn't 4 distinct 16-bar sections, but it kind of makes, I don't know, I think it maybe helps keep your ear a little bit looser and not as glued in. 4 repeats is a lot, especially of a drop. One of those ideas, one of these 16-bar sections has to use that song idea. So in Parallel, it's this vocal verse here, which is the middle of the drop, and then the instrument section and the third 16-bar section takes the melody from the second intro. So both ideas that are established are used in the drop. And then in Closer, the melody that's established in the second intro is used in the second part of the drop, and also the vocals that are kind of used through both these sections are sprinkled throughout. Gravity, it's the verse again. Vox, it's very similar to Parallel with the way that one's structured. So you just have to use some of the ideas that you established in the intro in the drop. And then we gotta take a break, folks, because it's just listening to drum and bass exhausting music. It'll wear your little heart out. You sit up there 170 BPM for super long. It's not a breakdown per se, because it doesn't actually lower the tempo or even kind of the perception of tempo. It doesn't go to a halftime groove or anything. In most drum and bass, most of the time you're just going to be staying at the same tempo, but you do really need to relax your energy. What do you put in this section? Oftentimes it's going to be kind of like ideas from your intro. It's going to be things that happened throughout these sections, but just without the drums, so that you're like way down. I said this is the same voice as is in the build section here in Gravity, but most importantly, the break is 2 16-bar sections, one of which cools you down, the other which builds you back up. In some of these songs, the build section exactly the same as the build section they used in the intro, but this one's only 2. You do 16 bars to cool down, 16 bars to build back up, and then you get drop number 2. Drop number 2, exactly the same as drop number 1. Just blow something new. Do something a little bit different. In this one, they had kind of this new synth sound and kind of like a new way of using the voice. They used this build voice that they're used to hear in the break. They use that in the kind of the drop prime section. In Closer, they used the harmony from this verse a second time around, and then also they had this one was actually probably the second drop was the most different from the first drop. There was only one shared section, where in Parallel there was 3. They actually, I think they almost directly copy pasted it. But I will say Parallel had one of the more interesting sections here because there's such a strong change bringing the voice in from the first 16 bars into the second 16 bars, and then this third 16 bar is actually a different chord progression than the first 2, and I think that does make a pretty big difference in how much your ear gets tired of it, especially when in songs like Closer, there's not actually really a chord progression at all. You're just sitting on one chord almost the entire time. You really do got to change things up a lot to keep it interesting if the chords aren't going to be interesting. So Parallel having its third repeat have a completely different chord progression than the first 2 repeats helps it a lot. Lastly but not least, you got the outro, 16 bars, taking ideas from previously used in the piece. No new ideas here at all. Minimal percussion. You're really trying to relax the energy. And after those 16 bars, a 5 to 6 second tail, and then you're done. This is a roadmap that I think will work for any drum and bass song. Can you do it differently? Absolutely. So many different songs, even on this album, are going to follow a different pattern than this one. But this, for a first time making a drum and bass song, I think this is a great pattern to follow. You got a really easy roadmap of exactly what to write. 16 bars of intro sounds, 16 bars establishing one idea, 16 bars building into your drop, 16 bars of drop, 16 bars of drop plus an idea from the beginning, 16 bars of something different, 16 bars cooling down, 16 bars building back up, and then repeat this, outro, tail. What a roadmap. I feel like we learned together here, folks. I feel like we now know how to make a drum and bass song. Couldn't be that hard, right?